The Judean desert. A Bedouin shepherd throws a stone into a cave. He hears something shatter. He enters. He finds the Dead Sea Scrolls. These are the oldest biblical documents ever found. They reveal something the church never mentioned. Jesus was not a Pharisee. He was not a Sadducee. Jesus was an Essene. He was a member of a mystical desert sect. He lived with them for 7 years in Qumran. There, he learned a prayer without words. It was a prayer of absolute silence. It was so powerful it could heal any illness. There were no rituals, no sacraments, just silence. Today you will learn that prayer, step by step. At the end of this video we will practice together. 5 minutes can change your life forever. The year was 1947. A young Bedouin shepherd named Muhammad Edidib was searching for a lost goat near the Dead Sea. In the desert hills of Qumran, about 22 miles east of Jerusalem, he saw a cave he had never noticed before. The desert sun beat down relentlessly on the yellowish rocks. The silence was absolute, broken only by the wind whispering through the rock formations. He threw a stone into the cave's darkness. He heard the unmistakable sound of pottery shattering. It was a sound that would echo through history. What he found inside would forever change everything we knew about the origins of Christianity. Inside, he found ancient clay jars. They contained carefully rolled scrolls. Some were in perfect condition, preserved for almost 2 millennia. Over the next decade, archaeologists would discover 11 more caves. In total, they found nearly 900 different manuscripts. These were the oldest biblical documents ever found by humanity. Some of these texts dated back to the 2nd century BCE. They were 1,000 years older than any known copy of the Hebrew Bible until that point. But before I explain what those manuscripts revealed, you need to see something first. It is the first documented healing by Jesus, and how exactly he performed it. Mark chapter 1 verse 40. A leper came to him, begging him. He knelt before Jesus and said, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Stop here. Imagine the scene with every detail. A man with leprosy. In the ancient world, leprosy was a social death sentence. Lepers were expelled from cities. They were forced to live apart from their families. They were forced to inhabit caves and abandoned places, far from any human community. If anyone approached, they had to shout, "Unclean, unclean," to warn others. No one touched them. No one came near them. No one looked them in the eye. They were dead while still living. They were ghosts with bodies slowly decomposing while they still breathed. And this man, he kneels before Jesus. "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Observe the structure of that sentence. He does not ask. He does not plead with desperation. He does not beg for mercy. He simply knows that Jesus can do it. Where did that absolute certainty come from? What had he seen or heard about Jesus that gave him such unwavering trust? Verse 41, moved with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched him. He reached out his hand and touched him. Do you understand what he had just done? Touching a leper was ritualistically defiling according to the law of Moses. It meant becoming unclean. It meant being expelled from the synagogue. It meant being rejected by the religious community. For a Jewish religious teacher, touching a leper was social suicide. But Jesus, he touches him. He had no fear, no hesitation, no concern for the consequences. And he said to him, "I am willing, be clean." 3 words in Spanish, 4 in Greek. Thelo, katharistheti, I am willing, be clean. There was no long prayer, no invocation of celestial powers, no purification ritual, only 3 words, spoken with absolute authority. Verse 42, immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. Immediately, not after weeks of prayer, not after prolonged fasting. Immediately, the disease that had slowly destroyed his body for years, it vanished in an instant. How? What did Jesus do internally in the moment before he touched that man? What process occurred in his mind, in his spirit, in his connection with the divine for 3 simple words to reverse years of physical destruction? The skin that was covered in sores and ulcers, it became clean like that of a newborn child. The nerves that had lost all sensation, they once again felt the wind and the warmth of the sun. The fingers that had twisted and deformed, they regained their original shape. All in an instant. All with 3 words. The Gospels do not explain it. They never describe Jesus' internal process during his healings. They show us the spectacular result. But they never show us the method. They never show us the technique. They never show us the how behind the miracle. But the Essenes manuscripts, they do. That same healing ability is documented among the Essenes of Qumran. They knew something institutional religion lost. They practiced something that produced real and verifiable results. Flavius Josephus, the most important Jewish historian of the 1st century, wrote about the Essenes. They are masters in the art of healing, and they seek remedies from roots and the properties of stones. He also wrote, some of them have the gift of predicting the future. They rarely, if ever, err in their predictions. They possessed vision, prophecy, and healing. These are 3 abilities the Gospels constantly attribute to Jesus. The answer lies in silence. It lies in prayer without words. It lies in direct connection with the divine. And Jesus, he mastered it completely. The Essenes emerged as an organized movement around 150 BCE. They were one of the 3 major sects of Judaism at that time, along with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but they were radically different. While the Pharisees controlled the synagogues and the Sadducees maintained their power over the temple in Jerusalem, the Essenes did something extraordinary. They left. They abandoned the corrupt cities. They rejected the established religious system. They retreated to the desert to live by their own rules. Why? The Qumran manuscripts explain it. The Essenes believed the temple in Jerusalem had been corrupted. They believed the official priests had betrayed the true faith. They believed institutional religion had become a business. They founded communities separate from the world. The most important was Qumran. It was an austere colony on the shores of the Dead Sea. Between 150 and 300 people lived there permanently. Philo of Alexandria described them as a community without slavery or private property, where everyone helped each other. Imagine how revolutionary this was 2,000 years ago. It was an egalitarian society in a world of masters and slaves. Flavius Josephus, who lived with them during his youth, documented their practices. They never utter a single profane word before the sun rises. They direct traditional prayers to the sun, as if entreating it to appear. They offered prayers at dawn. This happened before any other word of the day. And the most revealing detail, to those who pass before their meeting hall, the silence reigning within seems as if some fearful mystery is being celebrated. It was a silence so profound it frightened those who witnessed it. Archaeologists who excavated Qumran found 16 water pools, 10 of them for ritual baths. This was more than any other place except Jerusalem, but the Essenes had no physical temple. Why so many ritual baths without a temple? The manuscripts reveal the answer. They considered themselves priests in spirit, living in a spiritual temple. Their own body was the true temple. The rule of the community states, "It will sprinkle upon him the spirit of truth like water, lustral waters, washing him of all the abominations of lies." They did not speak only of physical water. They spoke of inner purification. Their flesh will be pure when their soul submits to all the precepts of God. True purification began within. It started in absolute silence. External water was only confirmation of an internal transformation already achieved. This formed the basis of their entire spiritual system. Their practice of inner silence was rigorous. It was systematic. It was disciplined. This produced verifiable transformations in those who practiced it faithfully. The Essenes were not naive dreamers. They were dedicated practitioners. These were men and women who had discovered something real. It concerned the nature of the human mind and its connection to the divine. And according to multiple researchers, this was the training Jesus received. We live in days when prophecies unfold before our eyes, but most still walk in darkness. They are trapped by incomplete truths. These were carefully hidden from humanity for centuries. Now consider this. What if the very content removed from the scriptures holds the answers? What if it holds the answers you have sought for years? These answers can illuminate your path. They can strengthen your faith. They can reveal the true purpose of Jesus' coming. That is why I prepared a powerful digital book for you. Why did the apostles conceal Jesus' most dangerous words? This book is not just a read. It is a spiritual awakening. It is a tool for those who desire to go beyond the surface. It helps you break free from manipulation. It helps you reconnect with the authentic Christ, without filters, without distortions, without human agendas. Download it now. It is available in the first pinned comment. But be aware, This content could be removed at any moment. It contains spiritually sensitive revelations. These revelations make even religious leaders uncomfortable. Do not wait for the world to collapse. Seek what your soul already knows it needs. Click now. Download your copy. Allow this truth to begin transforming your life. If you are one of the first to download it, return here. Then write, Amen. That will be your act of faith. Perhaps today God will open a door. You never imagined it was about to open. A mystery exists. The Bible never explains it. The Gospels describe Jesus' birth in extraordinary detail. They detail his presentation at the temple. They detail the visit of the Magi. They detail the flight to Egypt. Then an enormous leap occurs. Suddenly, Jesus is 12 years old. He discusses with the doctors of the law in the temple. His parents find him after 3 days of searching. After that, another immense void appears. The Gospel of Luke simply states, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. One single sentence covers 18 full years. It spans from age 12 to 30. This is when his public ministry began. Where was Jesus during those 18 years? What did he do? Who did he study with? Who taught him the spiritual techniques he would later demonstrate? Conventional tradition assumes he worked as a carpenter in Nazareth. It suggests an ordinary life as a Jewish artisan, but this explanation leaves too many questions. How did a simple carpenter acquire the scriptural mastery that astonished the doctors of the law? Where did his authority to reinterpret the Torah come from? Who taught him the healing techniques? The Essenes offer a plausible answer. They were a community dedicated to the intensive study of the scriptures. They were dedicated to the rigorous practice of spiritual disciplines. They were dedicated to the preservation of knowledge passed down through generations. If Jesus spent years with the Essenes, he would have learned exactly what he later demonstrated mastery of: deep interpretation of the scriptures, rigorous bodily disciplines, prolonged fasts, night vigils. Above all, he learned the prayer of silence. Consider this. Jesus began his ministry at age 30. He was crucified after barely 3 years. In just 3 years, he transformed human history. He founded a movement with over 2 billion followers today. How did he accomplish so much in such a short time? The answer lies in the preceding 18 years. These were years of intensive preparation. These were the years the Bible keeps silent about. Jesus did not improvise his ministry. He prepared meticulously for it. Every healing he would later perform, every demon he would cast out, every revolutionary teaching he would share. All of it was the fruit of years of silent preparation in the desert. The 3 years of public ministry were the harvest. The 18 preceding years were the patient and disciplined sowing. The most important seed planted in those years was the practice of inner silence. This was the prayer without words. It connected him directly with the Father. Have you ever heard about the connection between Jesus and the Essenes? Tell me in the comments. I am fascinated to know what true seekers of truth like you understand. Your experience can illuminate others. They may be just awakening to these revelations. Now we reach the heart of this video. The prayer the Essenes practiced was unlike any you know. There were no memorized words. There were no obligatory postures. There were no intermediaries. Only pure silence existed. It was not an empty silence. It was a carefully structured silence. It involved 7 precise and progressive stages. Where does this knowledge come from? It comes from the Qumran manuscripts themselves. It comes from Philo's accounts of the Therapeuti, a contemplative branch of the Essenes movement. It also comes from the tradition preserved by the Christian desert fathers. Evagrius Ponticus, a 4th century monk, called them pure prayer or prayer without images. John Cassian documented them in his conferences, but the roots lay in the Judean desert with the Essenes. These are the first 3 stages. Stage 1, the preparation of the body. The Essenes began before dawn. According to Josephus, they never utter a single profane word before the sun rises. It was not superstition, it was refined technique. Dawn represents the moment of least involuntary mental activity. These are the hours of greatest inner receptivity. The first stage involves sitting in absolute stillness. The back is straight but not rigid. Hands rest naturally. Eyes are gently closed. The body had to become a stable vessel. It must not be tense, it must not be lax, it must be perfectly balanced. Essene masters taught that the physical body is the first obstacle to inner silence. An uncomfortable body, generates thoughts of discomfort. Therefore, physical preparation was essential. Stage 2. The purification of breath. The second stage involves conscious breathing. It is not forced control. It is simply careful observation. The practitioner observed their natural breath. Inhalation, exhalation. They did not modify it, they did not judge it. Breath was seen as the breath of life from Genesis. It was the divine breath God breathed into Adam. Consciously observing it meant reconnecting with that primordial moment of creation. The Essenes believed each breath was a sacred gift. Each inhalation brought new life. Each exhalation released the old. When consciously observed, the mind began to quiet. Compulsive thoughts lost their power. Stage 3. The quieting of thoughts. Here comes the most difficult part. It is also the most transformative. Thoughts arise automatically. This is inevitable. The mind generates thoughts just as the heart generates beats. The Essene technique did not consist of stopping thoughts. That is impossible. It consisted of not identifying with them. Thoughts pass like clouds crossing the sky without affecting it. The practitioner observes them without engaging. They do not follow them. They do not reject them. They simply let them pass. They watch them arrive, watch them pass. The Essenes taught that most human suffering does not come from external events. Instead, it arises from our thoughts about those events. When we stop identifying with every thought, we discover an inner freedom. This freedom once seemed impossible. The process requires patience. At first, the mind resists fiercely. It wants to follow every thought. It wants to analyze, to judge, to plan, to remember, to anticipate. But with constant practice, it gradually learns to simply observe. It becomes a silent witness to its own workings. Then, in that moment of pure observation, something extraordinary begins to happen. The practitioner discovers they are not their thoughts. They are the space of consciousness where thoughts appear and disappear. This fundamental distinction changes everything. If you are not your thoughts, then negative thoughts, fears, and worries hold no real power over you. They are merely temporary visitors in the infinite space of your consciousness. You no longer have to carry that weight alone. Awaken to forgotten truths with the digital book, Why the Apostles Hid Jesus' Most Dangerous Words. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now, get your copy before they remove it. Now we continue with the remaining stages of silent prayer. Stage 4. The anchor word. The human mind needs something concrete to rest upon. It needs something to keep it present when thoughts try to drag it away. The Essenes used a very short word or phrase. They repeated it internally, softly, without vocalizing it. It was not a magic mantra. It was simply a practical anchor. Some options from the manuscripts included Adonai, a Lord, Shalom, peace, Echad, one, Hineni, here I am, Abraham's response when God called him. Its function was to give the mind a point of return. Each time thoughts pulled it away, one would gently return to the word. The Desert Fathers used Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, or simply Jesus, or Maranatha, come Lord. The specific word mattered less than its function as an anchor. Stage 5. Profound silence. After sustained practice, something remarkable happens. Thoughts naturally space out. The intervals of inner silence lengthen. The mind experiences moments of genuine stillness, not an empty absence. It is a full presence, alive yet wordless. The Desert Fathers called this state hesychia, total stillness, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Philo described moments where the soul strips itself of all that is sensible and turns toward the purely intelligible. Absolute clarity emerges where worries disappear. The Essenes considered this silence the true inner sanctuary. There, humans encounter the divine without intermediaries. Stage 6. Communion. In this advanced stage, the practitioner stops feeling separate from the divine. The boundaries between self and God blur. They do not disappear completely. They become permeable. Philo spoke of a God not knowable by intellect, but known by grace through God's gift of himself to the receptive soul. Profound silence becomes a direct encounter, heart to heart, spirit to spirit. The Essenes did not speak much of these experiences. They considered them too sacred, yet their texts make clear that they experienced them, and these experiences profoundly transformed them. In later mystical tradition, this would be called devekut in Hebrew, or theosis in Greek, adhesion to the divine, participation in the divine nature. Stage 7. Integration. The seventh stage is perhaps the most important. It is also the most ignored. The practitioner must return to the ordinary world. They open their eyes slowly. They reconnect with their physical body. They reconnect with the external world, but they return transformed. The Essenes never practiced silence to escape reality. They practiced it to act within reality with greater clarity, greater compassion, and greater spiritual power. Silence was not an end in itself. It was preparation for compassionate action. Each day after their hours of prayer, the Essenes worked. They cultivated the land. They cared for the sick. They copied manuscripts. They taught. Silence accompanied them throughout the day. It gave them a serene presence. It gave them clarity of purpose. According to ancient testimonies, it also gave them extraordinary capabilities. Capabilities others would call miraculous. The healing Jesus demonstrated was not inexplicable magic. It was the natural result of a deep connection to the source of all life. This connection was patiently cultivated through silence. The Essenes understood this. They dedicated hours each day to the practice for this reason. They knew silence was the gateway to a power that transformed not only the practitioner, but all who came into contact with them. If these revelations are deeply touching your heart, I invite you to join our exclusive members club. Here you will find a brotherhood of seekers. Like you, they refuse to settle for incomplete truths. Become a member now. How do we know Jesus practiced this silent prayer? The four Gospels offer clear clues. You only need to know where to look. Mark 1:35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. Matthew 14:23. After dismissing the crowd, Jesus went up on a mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Luke 5:16. He often withdrew to deserted places and prayed. The pattern remains consistent. Jesus sought solitude. He sought silence. He sought secluded places. He spent hours in solitary prayer. But the Gospels never specify what words he prayed during those times. When the disciples asked him to teach them to pray, Jesus gave them the Lord's Prayer. This was a structured, vocal prayer, but that was for them. It was for beginners. Jesus' personal prayer, the one he practiced alone for hours, was evidently something else. Consider the connection with John the Baptist. Luke 1:80 says about John, "The child grew and became strong in spirit. He lived in the wilderness until the day of his public appearance." John lived in the Judean desert. This was exactly where Qumran was located. He lived there from his youth until he was 30 years old. The similarities between John and the Essenes are numerous. Both practiced baptism by immersion. Both preached imminent divine judgment. Both lived ascetic lives. Both quoted the same passage from Isaiah. "A voice crying in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord." This verse appears in the Qumran manuscripts. It justifies their retreat to the desert. It also appears in all four Gospels, describing John. The coincidence is too exact to be accidental. Dr. Hartmut Stegemann, a world expert on the Dead Sea Scrolls, concluded this. John was likely trained by the Essenes before his independent ministry, and John baptized Jesus. After his baptism, Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, fasting, praying. This was exactly the type of retreat the Essenes practiced. Why specifically 40 days? The Essenes taught that 40 days was the minimum period required for a profound spiritual transformation. Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai. Elijah walked 40 days to the mountain of God. The number 40 represented the time needed for silence to complete its work in the human soul. Jesus knew this tradition. He followed it with precision. When he emerged from the desert after those 40 days, he was ready. Silence had prepared him. His connection with the Father was absolute. Power flowed through him unobstructed. You no longer have to carry that weight alone. Awaken to forgotten truths with the digital book, Why the Apostles Hid Jesus' Most Dangerous Words. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and get your copy before it is taken down. When we analyze the healing miracles in the Gospels, a pattern emerges. It is rarely discussed. Jesus never healed the same way twice. Sometimes he used saliva, sometimes mud, sometimes only words, sometimes only touch, Sometimes he was not even present, but one thing was always present: a moment of inner connection before the outer action. Mark 7:33-34 describes the healing of the deaf man. Jesus took the man aside from the crowd. He put his fingers into the man's ears. He then touched his tongue. Looking up to heaven, Jesus sighed deeply. Then he said to him, "Ephphatha." Analyze the sequence. He moves away from the crowd. He seeks silence. He looks to heaven in connection. He sighs deeply. That sigh is significant. In contemplative tradition, it represents the transition between inner silence and a word of power. It is the moment when divine connection manifests as action. Then comes the word. It is brief. It is direct. Ephphatha, be opened. There is no elaborate ritual. Only inner silence, divine connection, and a word of authority. In the healing of the man born blind, John 9, Jesus makes mud. He anoints the man's eyes. But first, there is a moment of pause. It is a moment of internal connection. In the healing of the woman with a flow of blood, Mark 5, Jesus does not even consciously initiate the healing. The woman touches his cloak. Jesus then senses that power had gone out from him. He was so connected to the divine source that power flowed automatically. In the resurrection of Lazarus, John 11, Jesus was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. He wept. He was, again, deeply moved. Finally, he cried out, "Lazarus, come out." The spiritual intensity preceding the miracle is palpable. The pattern is undeniable. First, inner separation or preparation. Second, a moment of silent connection. Third, a word or action of authority. Fourth, the immediate manifestation of power. This is precisely the pattern the Essenes manuscripts describe. It is not coincidence. It is evidence. Jesus did not improvise his miracles. He followed a precise method. He had learned and perfected it through years of practice. This method was based on inner silence. The Essenes had developed it over generations. The difference is that Jesus took it to a level no other practitioner had ever reached. His connection to the divine was so complete, so absolute, that power flowed through him almost without conscious effort. But the method remained the same. It was silence. It was connection. It was manifestation. Where are you watching this video from? It thrills me to know these truths are reaching thirsty souls worldwide. Type your country or city below. Let's form a global network of truth seekers. I am not the only one who has connected these dots. Dr. Lawrence Schiffman, a professor of Hebrew studies at NYU, has extensively documented the connections between Essenism and early Christianity. In Reclaiming the Dead Sea Scrolls, he argues that the manuscripts reveal a far more diverse Judaism than previously believed. Professor Adolfo Reutemann, curator of the Dead Sea Scrolls at the Israel Museum, notes that the discovery renewed academic fascination with the Essenes. He concludes their practices anticipated many central elements of Christianity. Dr. Paula Fredrickson of Boston University has investigated how first-century Judaism provided context for Jesus' teachings. Dr. James Van der Kam of Notre Dame has dedicated decades to studying connections between Essene texts and the New Testament. Dr. Rachel Elliott of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem has studied the connections between ancient Jewish mysticism and contemplative practices. Her research shows that the Essenes developed meditation techniques. These techniques would influence all subsequent mystical traditions. Professor Geza Vermes, one of the first translators of the manuscripts, dedicated his life to studying the Jewish Jesus. His conclusion is clear. We cannot separate Jesus' teachings from the spiritual context of Second Temple Judaism. The official 2001 document from the Pontifical Biblical Commission recognizes the Qumran manuscripts. They show the clearest expression of how Jesus' contemporaries interpreted the scriptures. Even the Vatican recognizes the significance of these findings. Dr. Jody Magness, an archaeologist at the University of North Carolina, specializing in Qumran, has personally excavated the site. She has confirmed the authenticity of the findings. Her research shows that the Qumran community was exactly as the manuscripts describe it, a center of intensive spiritual practice. Dr. Hartmut Stegemann of the University of Göttingen dedicated his career to studying the connection between John the Baptist, Jesus, and the Essenes. His book, The Essenes, Qumran, John the Baptist and Jesus, presents compelling evidence. It shows these traditions were deeply intertwined. This is not some fringe conspiracy theory. It is academic consensus from the world's most respected institutions. The evidence is overwhelming. The connections are undeniable, and the implications for our understanding of Jesus and his power are revolutionary. You no longer have to carry this burden alone. Awaken to forgotten truths with the digital book, Why the Apostles Hid Jesus' Most Dangerous Words. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and get your copy before it is taken down. Now we will do something different. We will practice together. We will do it right here. We will do it right now. You do not need to be in a special place. Only 5 minutes of your time are required. If you are somewhere you can do this, participate with me. If you are driving, simply listen. You can practice later. Sit comfortably. Keep your back reasonably straight. Relax your shoulders. Let your hands rest naturally. You can gently close your eyes or leave them half open, looking downward. Begin by observing your natural breath. Do not try to change it. Just observe it with gentle curiosity. The air enters. The air leaves. It is natural. It is effortless. Notice how your chest expands with each inhalation. Feel how it relaxes with each exhalation. This movement has been occurring since you were born. Thousands of breaths happen every day. They are mostly unnoticed, but now you are present. Now you observe. Thoughts will come. It is normal. It is inevitable. When a thought arrives, do not follow it. Do not reject it either. Simply notice that it is there, then gently return to your breath. Each time you realize you have become distracted, that is a moment of victory. Noticing is the first step. Gently returning is the second. If it helps, use a simple word as an anchor. Peace is an option. Here is another, or simply yes. The word has no magical powers. It is simply a point of return. In this silence, the Essenes found connection with the divine. Jesus found the power to heal. This same silence is available to you. It has always been available. You do not need to go to a special place. Just stop, breathe, observe. Now slowly begin to return. Feel your physical body. Notice the weight where you are sitting. Sense the air temperature. Hear the sounds around you. Gently move your fingers. Wiggle your toes. And when you are ready, slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. What you just experienced is the foundation of contemplative practice. It is just 5 minutes. Do this every day, at dawn if possible, or before you sleep. The Essenes practiced for hours. Jesus spent entire nights, but everything begins with 5 minutes daily. 5 minutes can transform your relationship with your mind, with your body, with life itself. Do not underestimate the power of 5 minutes daily. This is how all genuine transformation begins. Consistent small steps eventually lead you to places you never imagine. Possible options. The Essenes did not begin by practicing for hours. They started with minutes. Gradually, as their capacity grew, they increased the time. You can do the same thing. Start where you are. Begin with what you have. 5 minutes is enough to start. Remember this. Silence does not demand perfection. It only asks for your presence. It asks for your willingness to be there, breathing, observing, gently returning each time you become distracted. That is all. There is no hidden secret beyond this. The practice itself is the path. Have you ever felt like something crucial about Jesus' true power was kept from you? Share your experience in the comments. Your testimony could be exactly what another seeker needs to hear today. Honest objections. I need to be completely honest about this research's limitations. Not all scholars agree with every one of these conclusions. Some correctly point out that no direct documentary evidence exists that Jesus physically lived in Qumran. The canonical Bible does not mention the Essenes by name. No manuscript explicitly states, Jesus studied with the Essenes. This is factually true. We have circumstantial evidence. We see suggestive connections. We find strikingly similar patterns, but we lack irrefutable, definitive proof. What absolutely no one disputes. First, the manuscripts are authentic and date back to Jesus' time. Radiocarbon dating and paleographic analysis confirm this. Second, they reveal spiritual practices with clear parallels to early Christianity. These include baptism by immersion, messianic expectation, and shared ritual meals. Third, Christian contemplative tradition preserved silent prayer techniques matching those described in the manuscripts. Fourth, Jesus clearly practiced some form of solitary silent prayer that the Gospels repeatedly mention but never describe. You can accept the complete hypothesis, or you can simply acknowledge the fascinating similarities. In any case, contemplative silence has proven value. You do not need to believe any historical theory to experience its benefits. You decide what to do with this information. The truth is, you do not need my permission or anyone else's to practice silence. You need no certificates or authorizations. You need no special equipment or sacred places. You only need the decision to start and 5 minutes of your time. What you do with this opportunity depends entirely on you. You can close this video and forget everything you heard. You can continue your life exactly as it was before, or you can take the first step towards something completely new. It is something the Essenes discovered over 2 millennia ago. It is something Jesus perfected and demonstrated with astonishing power. It is something waiting for you in the silence of your own heart. The choice is yours. It always has been. We began this journey with a stone thrown into a cave in 1947. That stone revealed manuscripts that transformed our understanding of religious history, but more importantly, it revealed a living spiritual practice. It is a prayer that does not depend on memorized words, elaborate rituals, or human-built temples. It is a prayer of pure silence that connects directly with the divine. Jesus learned it from the Essenes. He practiced it in the deserts of Judea. He used it to heal the sick, cast out demons, and raise the dead, and he left it available for everyone. When you pray, go into your private room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6:6. Your inner room is your heart. It is your deepest silence. It is your direct connection to the source of life. You need no permission from any institution. You need no years of study. You need not be special. You only need silence, 5 minutes a day. This is the same silence the Essenes practiced 2 millennia ago. This is the same silence Jesus sought before dawn. This is the same silence that has healed bodies and transformed souls for millennia. That silence is waiting for you. It has always been there. You only need to stop, close your eyes, and listen. The tradition the Essenes began did not die with them. The Desert Fathers preserved it. Orthodox monks passed it down. Catholic contemplatives rediscovered it. And now, with the Dead Sea Scrolls, we can trace the direct line from Qumran to Jesus and from Jesus to us. This chain has remained unbroken for 2,000 years. The tradition that survived. What the Essenes practiced did not die with them when the Romans destroyed Qumran in 68 CE. The tradition survived. The early Christians who fled Jerusalem before its destruction in 70 CE carried these contemplative practices with them. Some settled in the Egyptian desert, others settled in Syria, still others settled in the mountains of Cappadocia. In the 3rd century, men like Anthony the Great began to retreat into the Egyptian desert to live lives of prayer and silence. They were called the Desert Fathers. Their teachings are remarkably similar to the Qumran manuscripts. John Cassian, in the 5th century, documented these practices in his conferences after years of living with the Egyptian monks. He introduced silent prayer to the West. The Jesus prayer of the Eastern Orthodox tradition is a direct heir to the anchor word technique the Essenes used. Millions of Orthodox Christians practice it to this day. Centering prayer, popularized by Catholic monks like Thomas Keating in the 20th century, is essentially the same practice, adapted for the modern world. The tradition was never lost. It was only hidden under different names. And now, with the Dead Sea Scrolls, we can trace the direct line from Qumran to Jesus, from Jesus to the Apostles, from the Apostles to the Desert Fathers, and ultimately, to us. The secret the Church never revealed. There is something else you need to know. The early Christians, those who personally knew Jesus or his apostles, practiced forms of prayer very different from what we know today. Mechanically recited prayers did not exist. Rosaries with endless repetitions did not exist. Elaborate liturgies lasting hours did not exist. What existed was silence. It was a deep silence. It was a structured silence. It was a silence that transformed. The Acts of the Apostles describes the first disciples after the Ascension. They all joined together constantly in prayer. What kind of prayer? The Greek text uses prosouche, which simply meant being oriented toward God, not necessarily words. The Apostle Paul wrote, "The Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans." These were wordless groans. This was communication beyond words. This was prayer that transcends language. Where did the early Christians learn this? From Jesus himself. He learned it from the Essenes. But at some point in history, this practice was lost to the majority. It was replaced by external rituals. It was replaced by memorized words. It was replaced by institutional intermediaries. Silence became reserved for a few mystics in remote monasteries. This continued until 1947. It lasted until a Bedouin shepherd threw a stone into a cave, and the manuscripts buried for 2 millennia returned to the light. Now you have access to what was, for centuries, knowledge reserved for spiritual elites. Relevance for today. Why does this matter in the 21st century? Because silent prayer works. It functions regardless of its historical origin. You do not need to believe in the Essenes. You do not need to accept all historical connections. You do not need to belong to any particular religion. The practice works because it is based on how we operate. This truth resonates deep within the human mind. Modern science confirms what the Essenes intuitively knew. Contemplative silence changes the brain. MRI studies show measurable shifts. Gray matter increases in areas of emotional regulation. Activity reduces in the amygdala, the brain's fear center. It reduces physiological stress. Cortisol levels drop. The immune system strengthens. Blood pressure normalizes. Hospitals worldwide incorporate meditation as a complement to medical treatments. This includes cancer centers, chronic pain clinics, and cardiac rehabilitation programs. The Essenes were 2,000 years ahead of their time. This practice is available to you right now. No intermediaries, no permissions, no cost, only silence. Harvard University published studies showing that just 8 weeks of regular contemplative practice produce measurable structural changes in the brain. The hippocampus, the center for memory and learning, increases in size. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, strengthens. Dr. Herbert Benson of Harvard Medical School documented what he called the relaxation response, a physiological state opposite to stress that activates automatically during the practice of contemplative silence. The Essenes had no MRI scanners. They had no controlled studies. But they knew from direct experience what science is just now beginning to confirm. Silence works. It works for everyone. It works regardless of religion, culture, or educational level. The silence Jesus practiced is available to you today. I am not asking you to believe everything I have said. I am not asking for blind faith. I am asking you to try it. 5 minutes. Tomorrow morning, upon waking. If you feel no difference after 1 week, discard everything. Move on. But if you begin to notice something, a calm you never had, a surprising clarity, a connection to something greater, then you will know the Essenes discovered something real, something Jesus perfected, something now available to you. Silence does not discriminate. It demands no religious credentials. It charges no money. It asks for no special memberships. It only asks for your presence. It asks for your willingness to pause amidst the noise of the modern world. Are you willing to give it? Think about what you could discover. Consider the peace you might find. Imagine the clarity that could transform your decisions. Envision the connection to something infinitely greater than your daily problems. All of this awaits you. It waits in the silence. It waits in the 5 minutes you can dedicate tomorrow upon waking. This is the same practice that transformed the Essenes. It is the same practice Jesus perfected. It is the same practice that has healed bodies and souls for 2 millennia. Now it is your turn. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your journey toward transformative silence begins with 5 minutes tomorrow. Do not postpone it. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. The decision is yours. The Essenes left you a map. Jesus showed you the way. 2,000 years of contemplatives confirm it works. Only you need to take that first step. 5 minutes. Tomorrow, upon waking. The silence awaits you. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you do not miss any revelations. Do not miss the next video, where we will continue unraveling truths that have remained hidden for centuries. If you truly feel the call to delve deeper, Consider joining as a member. The guardians of truth are already accessing knowledge we can never make public. You no longer have to carry that burden alone. Awaken to forgotten truths with the digital book, Why the Apostles Hid Jesus' Most Dangerous Words. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and get your copy before it is taken down. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your open heart. Write Amen in the comments if this resonated with your heart. Write Amen if you are ready to begin your practice of silence tomorrow. We will meet in the next video. May peace and silence guide your path.